Good day and welcome to Sincerely John. We're into the book of Revelation and we're coming into those letters to address to the 7 churches that were in Asia Minor. And let me just show you this picture again, just to give the setting of where we're at. John is on a small little island at this moment, just off the coast there, and he's going to start writing to all these 7 churches. And quite interesting that he starts with Ephesus, which is this home church. And it will probably be one of the biggest cities around there as well. So from there, then, the letters are addressed to these 7 churches, which then gets us into the book. But before we go there, I was speaking just now, Valdo and I were just saying how beautiful it is when in these letters, Jesus actually starts by revealing something of himself.
Yeah, it was, I said to you, it was a revelation to me. I never read it like that before, where every time he introduces himself, which we'll read today in the first 2 churches, in the address to them, it's speaking in the character of how he's introduced himself.
Yes.
So, when he talks about he's walking among them, then you recognize he's speaking to the fact that he's with them. But we'll break that open as we get there. But it was just an interesting thing that I felt I never saw before in that detail.
Yeah, and it's important because they definitely have a pattern. Every one of these, as you start from the first letter, you'll pick up from the second and the third all the way through. Every one of them have a particular pattern around them. And the revelation of Jesus himself to the church speaks to how he speaks to them and what he addresses in them.
Yeah.
So it really is a statement of, I'm the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the all in all.
Yeah.
I am what you need for where you are right now.
That's really it. He's revealing what they need, what's prominent and relevant to them. In his own nature and character.
Yeah. So maybe show this slide quickly because as we start with Ephesus, you'll pick up this pattern is there. So first, as Valdo says, there's a unique revelation of Jesus Christ. And see how in that unique revelation of Jesus, you can go back to chapter 1 and see the way in which John sees Jesus on the island. And so much of what he addressed to the churches is reflected in the letters then. So we'll speak about the one with a sword coming from his mouth. We'll speak about the one with the Alpha and the Omega, the living one. And just consider, he went through that furnace of the fire of wrath of the Father's sin, of the sin of the Father, the wrath of the Father against sin. He walked through that and he's alive on the other side, and he's the one who holds the star. So you'll pick this up as we go. The second thing then is there'll be a commendation, and Jesus is encouraging. While in every one of the churches except for one, there's something for him to say, hey, there's a flaw to address. He starts by encouraging them. He says, I see the good that you have in you. Then there's that condemnation and a charge. In other words, he'll say, listen, but this, we have to speak to this area over there. So he's the one that sanctifies his church, as still today. Then there's a charge. He says, come on, you've heard me now, so step up to the plate. You can do it. You can overcome this what you're facing, or this flaw that I'm noticing in you. Then there's a caution, a warning at the end. If you don't listen to the condemnation and the charge, this is what's going to happen. He just lays it out clear for them. And then a call to remain faithful for those who will overcome. He ends every single one of them like that with a great encouragement. If you overcome, this is going to be the reward. And see, even in the rewards, how those point to relationship with Christ, whether it's the eternity with him or a reward that he will give them as an intimacy, a name that only I and you know. So even the reward is Jesus for all eternity.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Very much so, yeah. So I'm going to start reading for us in just a moment from the book of Ephesus, but let's maybe just first do the background.
The history,
Yeah.
historical stuff.
Just speak to what it is. So, I don't know, have you ever traveled around that area?
I have, but not in those areas, no.
Is it?
I've traveled, but not in those areas.
Okay, because incredible tours over there. Haven't had the privilege myself yet, but I know of friends who did. So, in every one of these places, there are still ruins today. Which speaks of something.
Yeah.
It gives you a picture of what it looked like.
Yeah. No, I mean it makes it come alive. I think sometimes if we just read the words and we're not unable to put it in the context of a real life history and where these things took place. I mean, we do the same with Israel and Jerusalem, and people go on tours and see where Jesus lived and where he walked. It does it feels like it makes the meaning a bit deeper,
Yeah.
a bit more relatable than
Yeah.
just something that you hear about. And I even said to you, I didn't recognize how Polycarp was the pastor of this one church,
Yes.
where you would have heard the name Polycarp maybe in some history, church history stuff, but to actually take it as far back as Revelation, the early church, it just gives it a different sense to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, which is the same for the Old Testament. It's God who steps into history. It's real. And I think as Christians, if you walked with it a while, you take it for granted.
Yeah.
But look at other religions. It doesn't touch earth.
Yeah.
It's not real history. Look at the time over here, even these gods, if you look at the statue just here of Madonna, or Lady Diana, she's got another name over there in Ephesus. She's the goddess, and she's this multi-breasted goddess of fertility. And then there's the library over there, which you can still see the ruins of today. The amphitheater. In the book of Acts, there's a powerful scene that happens over there. There's this massive riot that happens in Ephesus. And it ends up in this amphitheater that's still there today. And then this old road of Ephesus to the harbor that runs down there. So just to give you a picture of a place in time. And this is the place that he would have written to. Jesus knows them in their time, in that place, which is powerful. So compare that to this goddess over here, or when we go to the next letter just now, we'll see two other gods. They're myths.
Yeah, which again speaks to, in the context of the history, the Greek mythology that the culture would have lived by.
Yeah.
And Ephesus being renowned for their godless, sensual kind of living. So they were really just pandering to whatever Greek mythical god they were liking at the time.
Yes, compared to a Jesus
Yeah.
that was born in a country,
Yeah.
in a time, lived out a life with these friends, and he's writing a letter to his, he's telling his friend,
Yeah.
write a letter to the rest of the church. It's here now.
Yeah. And then remembering, again, like you said, the audience, they are Christians like you and I, wanting to serve God in the midst of this godless society.
Yeah.
Well, not godless, but, let's say godless without the capital G society. And that brings its own challenge. And that's why they are suffering the persecution and the challenges that they're in. So 100%. And we can probably, without naming any places and cities, we can probably find cities and places like that in our day and time, where Christians live. I mean, we live in a small little town on the west coast, which is relatively guarded and, in a bubble, and we can freely practice our religion without, much persecution and, apart from the trivial things.
Yeah.
But, go deeper into those kinds of societies where the beast and those things are real, people are hiding or trying to fit in, which I guess we do in any town or city to various extents, but they were under severe
Persecution.
Yeah, and even from their own Jewish brothers, you were handing them over, which makes it, I think, a little bit more painful. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So this particular church where we're going to start off with, Ephesus, had many renowned leaders that we would know out of the book of Acts. Paul and Apollos. Paul writes about him when he writes to the Corinthian church as well, Apollos. And then there's Priscilla and Aquila, this husband and wife ministry team that Paul also ministered with. They will also spend some time in Ephesus. Timothy, to who he writes the letters, 1 and 2 Timothy, was a pastor in Ephesus. And then John himself. So Ephesus was really a strong foothold for the church.
Yeah.
There were a lot of powerful leaders there for extended periods of time ministering in that place.
Yeah, and a lot of what scripture that we read today written from times of being in Ephesus and the church of Ephesus.
In that 3 years, Paul probably wrote a few of his letters. Yeah. So an interesting book to start off with. So let's then go to the actual letter. And I'm going to start us off at the end of chapter 1 just to get us into the context. Write down what you have seen, both the things that are now happening and the things that will happen. This is the meaning of the mystery. of the 7 stars you saw in my right hand and the 7 gold lampstands. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. So remember that picture, because when we flip over now to the letter, the encouragement is from that, I'm with them. I know where they are. They're not distant. Jesus is keeping his promises. At the end of the gospel, it says, I'm with you to the end of the age. I will never leave you nor forsake you. That's what the revelation there means. Write this letter to the angel of the church in Ephesus. This is the message from the one who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, the one who walks among the 7 gold lampstands. I know all the things you do. I've seen your hard work and your patient endurance. I know you don't tolerate evil people. You have examined the claims of those who say they are apostles but are not. You have discovered they are liars. You have patiently suffered for me without quitting. But I have this complaint against you. You don't love me or each other as you did at first. Look how far you have fallen. Turn back to me and do the works you did at first. If you don't repent, I will come and remove your lampstand from its place among the churches. Remember the strong church that it is.
Yeah.
This is a powerful statement, but this is in your favor. You hate the evil deeds of the Nicolaitans, just as I do. Anyone who, with ears to hear, must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. To everyone who is victorious, I will give fruit from the tree of life in the paradise of God. All right. That gets us into the letters. So we spoke about that angel of the church in Ephesus a bit in our first one, eh?
Yeah.
Angel being messenger, one
Yeah.
that's sent, which could be the pastor or the head of the church over there, or a head elder, somebody like that, or it could quite be an angel, like an angelic being.
Yeah.
I would lean more towards that side.
Okay.
In commentaries, you could go this way or that way about it, but it just means God knows somebody is entrusted over this church, whether it is the actual person or a spiritual being entrusted with overseeing
Yeah.
those in the church.
It'll just be very interesting in the delivery of the message then, an angel being the messenger.
Yeah,
If you think, how would that practically play out? Give this message to the
messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would they receive it? A prophetic word? I don't know, a vision. But he's clearly penning this out, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting delivered physically, I believe.
To a person.
To a person,
So
yeah.
you would lean more towards the other side.
I don't know. I
This
think
is the pastor of the
maybe-
church or a...
maybe I agree in this one at least, but I know in the second church we're going to be speaking about the pastor there is Polycarp.
Yeah. So is he actually giving it into his hands?
Is he the messenger, right? That's. But either way, the message gets there. We get to read it. I'm not too fussed about who plays that role. But
Yes.
it can. But I agree with the fact that it could be any one of those as well.
Yeah. So maybe a bit of my reasoning behind it is later in the book of Revelation, we'll see that the dragon can take a third of the stars of the heaven with his tail and fling them down to the earth. There we don't see them as people.
Yeah.
There it is, angelic beings falling
Sure.
with him. There's another stage where he sees a star shooting out of the sky, and it had a key in its hand, and it opened the abyss. It's not a person.
Yeah.
It's an angelic being. So I read it in here,
Yeah.
but the fact that it's actually a church makes it that it could be both,
Yeah.
and it is a messenger.
That's right.
the actual word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the message from the one who holds the 7 stars. Just again, that picture. Jesus is in charge. Jesus has authority, and therefore he's the one that is speaking to the church. So don't just receive it as from John.
Yeah.
It comes with a lot of weight.
That's right. And I think we introduced it when we started. But when he's reminding them that he's walking among them, he's. I think it's a good start off to the series of letters, because again of the context of what's happening is they're in difficulty. They're in a time of trouble. The Romans are persecuting them and bringing destruction and difficulty. And for them to start off with saying, "I walk among you. I'm here with you," that is a great comfort and encouragement to them. And again, pointing back to that picture from the end of chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's holding true to that.
It's leaning right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which goes with the statement, verse 2. I know
That's it.
all the things you do. It's not like I've heard it from afar. I'm there. Yeah. I've seen your hard work and your patient endurance. I know you don't tolerate evil people. Then both of us said we want to go to a particular verse just now, which speaks to you have examined the claims of those who say they are apostles but are not. You have discovered their lies. You have patiently suffered for me without quitting. In other words, you're practicing discernment and you're taking truth seriously.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
You're not walking as blind.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're living in remembering writings that have come before and warnings that have come before, which is what we'll read now. But it's not just in the moment. Oh, I'm caught up in this moment, and I'm not too sure. Where will I find guidance from? Now, I'm obviously they're reading this, but then they're also living from Scripture, being reminded that they've been warned about these things. And this is, I love how they actually literally practice 1, 2, and 3 John.
Yeah.
They're doing what he was writing about, right?
Yeah.
Because he also wrote from Ephesus at that
Watch
time.
out.
And he was saying, watch out for these false teachers, these false messiahs. Don't allow these ones to come in. And so this is a very real...
Just give them a podium. Yeah.
Exactly, playing out of that. And he's saying, well, you've done well.
Yeah.
You've actually listened to that advice.
Absolutely. So what you're going to read now, just to give it some context, is out of the book of Acts. And this is Paul just before he goes to Jerusalem. He's greeting them. So he's about to make that journey, being caught in Jerusalem and then taken to Rome.
Yeah.
In that storm. And it's a last warning. So this timing-wise is about 40, 50 years before John is writing to them. So they are now a second-generation church. So over here, if you sort of think 40, 50 years ago, Grandpa could have passed away if he was the pastor of the church or an elder or one of the first believers.
Yeah.
Just gives you a bit of a context for this church,
Where
because it's going to go into what we read now about the love. But go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so he writes in Acts 20, verse 29 to 31, he says, I know that after I leave, savage wolves will come in among you and will not spare the flock. Even from your own number, men will arise and distort the truth in order to draw away disciples after them.
Yeah.
So be on your guard. Remember that for 3 years I've never stopped warning each of you night and day with tears.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's been there for 3 years. I've held up this banner. I've kept the guard over you. You guys have to take the responsibility now. I'm not going to be around anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Keep watch over the flock.
Yeah.
And the commendation to them is, you've done it. You have examined those who had claims that they're apostles and they were found to be liars. You've patiently suffered for me without quitting. In other words, you've kept the guard over the truth with you. Yeah, which makes the next verse even a bit harder.
Yeah.
But I have this complaint against you. You don't love me or each other as you did at first. Some of the other translations simply says you've lost your first love. Look how far you have fallen. Turn back to me and do the works you did at first. What does that look like when you read it, Waldo? Losing your first love.
Yeah, I think it's in many ways it's just turning to duty instead of I think we actually spoke about this yesterday.
I thought about it as well in preparing.
It struck me yesterday when I read it, and I thought I need to send this to you so that we can just. But it's really that thing where you can be in an environment, you can do the same thing, but if it's not by that same excitement, that same love, then you're really just doing a duty, a job.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very real and timely warning for everyone who's walking with the Lord.
And who's been around with the Lord for a while.
Yeah.
And is involved in ministry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're actually doing the works. And it's important here. He says, do the things you've done at first.
Yeah.
Now, think about us. We're going into a second generation church now. I mean, we've been around enough that our kids are growing up. My kids have been on your camera team. They're in the Sunday school ministry. Last one is now a matric.
Worship team.
Yes. So they're getting involved in the things that we started up.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's wonderful. Things are running, but we can fall into the same thing.
Yeah.
We just use the love of it.
That's right. If you don't keep the heart of why we started this, and I think that's always clear with the vision thing. Like if you don't know where you're going, you just keep going to no avail. Like I'm just being busy. But if I'm aiming towards something and there's an a love that drives it, it's completely different. It comes across completely different. So, I mean, here we see these are people who've done well.
Yeah.
They've actually been discerning. They've kept away from evil. So they've done all the right things. Yet there's this complaint that there's a coldness in their hearts, which I think is just a really good warning for all of us as well.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 13 came to mind, just that statement of what is love.
Yeah.
If I speak in tongues of angels, without love, it's just a clanging cymbal. If I prophesy, know all sorts of mysteries, all of these things, give up my body to be martyred, all of this stuff without the love at the end of the day is just a clanging cymbal. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So may we hear it and come back there if we've slipped in any way. Look how far you've fallen, turned back, and then the warning over here. If you don't repent, the picture is powerful. Now, I will come and remove your lampstand from its place among the churches. So, as Ross writes about this, he says, man, the light has gone out, so the lampstand is nothing anymore.
Yeah.
If the love is not there, then the very essence of Christ is not among us. So then it's just a stand. So I'll remove the stand.
Yeah.
Because it's a false picture.
Yeah.
It's promising something that it's not delivering. Yeah. But verse 6, you've got this in your favor. You hate the evil deeds of the Nicolaitans just as I do. All right. So I actually want to read a portion over here because he says it well. Says, before closing, Jesus commands the church for hating what he hates, the Nicolaitans, and then in brackets, no, they were not a family who left the church. Not much is known about this sect apart from what we can derive from the name. Niku means conqueror, and laity refers to the ordinary people. The compound word implies conquering the ordinary people, or domineering the ordinary people. This church resisted a culture that tolerated forceful, harsh leadership, lording it over others. And you can see that coming into a church or any kind of organization very quickly.
Yeah.
That it's people who lead by, I'll make you do it, or intimidating.
Yeah.
And Jesus said very clearly, you will not lord it over one another like the Gentiles do.
Yeah.
So he says, hate that in the church.
From what I read, it was interesting because it also referred to them as giving into the culture. So they were trying to live this dual lifestyle of enjoying the sensuality of the city and the sexual sin and engaging in those things, but yet still being part of Christianity, which again plays into the 1, 2, 3 John kind of be wary of this kind of behavior where what's it, agnosticism, where that doesn't matter, but we can still practice Christianity kind of thing, which is again a false teaching and a false example to these people. So yeah, it's interesting that what your brother wrote there.
From the other side, both of them being true.
Yeah.
Do not give in to the culture of this world.
Yeah.
Don't lord like them.
Yeah.
Don't mix with it.
Yeah.
And then closing, anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he's saying to the churches. To everyone who is victorious, I will give fruit from the tree of life and the paradise of God. Now this we're going to see a whole bunch of times all throughout the book, how these Old Testament images are drawn into the book. It really is, the book draws the entire Bible into one picture. So this is coming back to the garden.
Yeah.
He says there's a tree of life that you could not eat from.
I'm going to give it to you.
I'm going to offer to you. I'm the tree of life, is what he's saying. Yeah. We're going on.
I reckon we do one more today.
Yes.
It might be a bit longer than usual, but
so let me just again show you a couple of pictures, which over there. So Volder referred to it just now. Polycarp is then from the church in Smyrna, which is the next letter. He's the bishop or the leader of the church at the time over there. And he's got a fascinating story in his writings, but also in the way that he was martyred for Christ. So it gives us a beautiful context of the time. And then the church itself, just like all the other cities that he's speaking into, have these guards over them. And Smyrna in particular had Sibyl, which was the mother of the gods, and then Bacchus, which is well known for being the god of the party.
The wine god.
Yeah, he features actually in I
don't know. I don't know.
C.S. Lewis book, you know, as
one of the demons.
Yeah, having the party over
Okay.
there, and he's always seen as this vine growing everywhere. And
Yeah.
he's just pressing out wine all
Okay.
over the show. But it gives you a bit of the setting again of what we're speaking into. So write this letter to the angel of the church in Smyrna, which you can then see as actually this Polycarp receiving the letter on behalf of the church.
That's why what my comment was about earlier, understanding this. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the message from the one who is the first and the last, who was dead but is now alive. The Alpha and the Omega, which in one sense is making a statement. You've got an emperor that says, I'm Lord of Lords, I'm King of Kings.
Yeah.
I've got a higher authority.
Yes. And I mentioned last time about the Greek, it refers to the Greek alphabet, the beginning and the end. So he's saying, I'm better than that.
Yes.
I'm bigger than that. And all your gods, I think every letter in the alphabet had a god related to it. So he's saying, I'm the beginning, I'm the end, and everything in between.
Yeah. I'm Lord over all of them.
Yeah.
And just this powerful statement, we'll see just now why the statement of who was dead but is now alive. This is going to be a feature all throughout the letter. I know about your suffering and your poverty, but you are rich. I know the blasphemy of those opposing you. They say they are Jews, but they are not, because their synagogue belongs to Satan. Don't be afraid of what you're about to suffer. The devil will throw some of you into prison to test you. You will suffer for 10 days. But if you remain faithful, even when facing death, I will give you the crown of life. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he's saying to the churches. Whoever is victorious will not be harmed by the second death. I was dead. I'm alive. Don't be afraid of this, even if you have to die. Yeah. So there's a couple of really interesting things in here. One of them is that it's the only letter that does not have a condemnation and a charge. Yeah.
Very encouraging.
Yeah. It also seems like one of the churches that suffer the most.
Yeah. Which I think I read some of your brothers write things about this, but just in terms of blessing and God's favor and those kinds of things, I think we often connect it to prosperity, physical prosperity. And here we've got this church and I'm not connecting it to poverty. I'm just saying there's a balance to strike in this, to recognize that they clearly had suffering, and you can ask the question, why and where's Jesus? But we know he's there. That's where it starts off. And also putting it into that context of, in the end, you still win.
Yes.
I've overcome death, and you will not be hurt by the second death.
Yeah.
Which isn't always what we want to hear in the suffering.
Oh no.
But it really reminds us that it's not all about the material blessing that we think, God's abandoned these people because they're going through this difficulty. But he hasn't. He clearly hasn't.
It's interesting, during the exile, so before Jesus' time, Ezekiel also writes to the exiles, and he says to the people back home, he says, you guys think that you're blessed because you weren't taken to exile. You've got it the wrong way around. We're blessed. God's about to destroy that. So we do often get it completely wrong. We read it according to worldly standards and thinks this is blessing. Well, let God define it.
Because God commends them.
Yes.
In their suffering and in their poverty. And if we can maybe just speak to that, why they were poor.
Yes. So if you were a blacksmith, or if you were a material tradesman or anything like that, each one of those in the culture, you had a particular god that you had to sacrifice to, which was the early form of what we would call unions today. So if I was a Christian, then automatically I said there's only one Lord, there's only one God. I will not bow my knee to any other, which means I fired myself. I could no longer work in that trade because the union would kick me out and says, we don't want somebody that doesn't want to sacrifice to our God. Now, it's an evil system because just like anything else, it's religious, but there's money.
Yeah.
The sacrifice is you pay your dues to the union.
Yeah, and you will be blessed because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just connected to religion in that sense. So if I don't pay my dues, well, sorry.
Yeah.
Which means quite literally being Christian meant being poor.
Yeah, by default.
Yeah, so you could do the unholy jobs, which was like burying the dead or taking out the garbage or whatever else.
Working for the sewage company.
Yeah,
Stealing
and then
grains.
being thrown in prison in that time as well. You did not get your meals in prison, in the Roman prisons. So the poor community that you were part of now as a Christian had to go and look after those even there. So suffering was rough.
Yeah, and they chose it.
Yes.
Which is, I think, this actually came up in a discussion in one of my groups this week where, that what will you do if someone says, deny Christ or we kill you?
Yeah.
And we don't want to give an answer because it's something that you don't want to perceive that it would happen. But if it would, like this is an example of people saying, well, we'll stand to the end. It's like Daniel and his friends. You know, you can chuck us in the fire. Even if he doesn't save us in the fire, we'll still believe.
I will still remain to the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just look at what the encouragement is for them, because that's quite a striking thing as well. I know about your suffering, so I know that you're in a bad place and your poverty, but you are rich. I know the blasphemy of those opposing you. They say they are Jews, but they are not, because their synagogues belong to Satan. So just quite simply over here, Smyrna had a very large Jewish population, and it was a powerful force in the area. And because they were a protected religion under the Roman rule, because they were an ancient religion and the Christians were not. They had this beef with Christians who said they came sort of out of the Jewish religion. Jesus was a Jew and he's the fulfillment, the Messiah. So they would hand them over, like you said earlier. Yeah. And Jesus is just saying, remember this for chapter 7, he's saying, being Jewish at this time from here on out is not a DNA thing. It's being born into my nation. That's the imagery of being Jewish. Don't be afraid of what you're about to suffer. So he's saying you're going through a tough time, you're going to suffer more.
It's going to be more,
How's that for encouragement?
Yeah, that's probably why there's no condemnation in that letter.
But Jesus does it in the Gospels as well. Remember when he says to them that people are going to throw you and drag you off to the magistrates and think they do me a favor. He's not trying to deny the suffering that we're going to face as his children. If they hated me, they're going to hate you. He's just being honest, which is a good thing. The devil will throw some of you into prison to test you. You will suffer. What do you make of the 10 days over there? What do we make with numbers like this in the letter? We're going to see a lot.
Yeah, I think just going back to where we started, I think we acknowledge that it is symbolic. A lot of the symbolism in this whole book. So we can't take some as not symbolic and some as symbolic. So in that sense, you would say there would be a symbolism to the 10, meaning a full measure.
Complete.
So it's not an actual 10-day imprisonment, if you will.
Now I believe so, because otherwise you have to go to the rest of it and say, okay, Jesus is standing with stars in his hand at this moment as he speaks. No, wait.
And 1,000 years later will then be actual 1,000 years.
Yeah, it's symbolism, of this complete, you're going to have now, you think you're suffering now, there's a complete suffering coming still. But if you remain faithful even when facing death, I will give you the crown of life, which all of them at that time would read that and they would know what it means. Is that's the Olympian wreath, the golden wreath on your head at the end of the day.
The winner.
Yeah, and it says you will look like the loser because you're going to die for me. Don't worry. You're the champion.
The victor.
You've been faithful to the end. And then anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he's saying to the churches. And I think in this letter it's just quite simply, listen, if you're going to suffer for me, just know that I know it. I know the measure of what you're going to go through. I've gone through because I've died for you, but I'm alive.
I'm alive,
So push through. You will be alive.
Yeah, if any, that's the encouragement we must take from that.
Yeah.
And understand that we will face suffering and persecution in this life. Maybe it looks
Yeah.
different, but we can hold on to that fact that even as Paul said, they can kill my body, but they cannot take away my soul, right?
Yeah.
That's secure.
Yeah.
Very, very bad paraphrasing there, but
No, it's well said. Listen, can I close off with the last reading over here? Just the bringing it home part over here was very encouraging. This promise is to those who overcome, how it ends off. But what should we conquer for us now? It looks very different as for these people. The victor should prevail over the fear of death, the fear of suffering, the love of this life. They are charged to endure and overcome the devil and his beast, Rome, his prostitute, Babylon, and his false prophet, the many pagan religions. Conquer the intimidation of the most terrifying threat the beast of Rome could bring, which is death. Prevail over the lure of comfortable life, of pleasure, all those who bow to the devil in Babylonian-style living. Resist the deception of the false prophet and his false religions that says there are other ways to pure goodness and peace. So all of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
The imagery still speaks to us today.
yeah. And a very practical example of someone who held up to that is Polycarp. And
Yes.
his words in the beginning of that chapter is how he was martyred, what he said before. You think 1 hour in the fire is going to do anything to me when you're going to be in the fire for all of eternity and I'm going into paradise. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's just keeping that in mind.
The long perspective.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And our memory verse today is Revelation 2 verse 4 out of that first letter. But I have this complaint against you. You don't love me or each other as you did at first. So Jesus, please, as much as we hear this now, show us in our love, what is it looking like at this moment? And stir up in us a love that is truly to your glory and honor and that is fueled from your Spirit, Lord. Not something we try and conjure up, but something that overflows from this fountain of life inside of us. We welcome you, Lord. Thank you. Amen.